It was a quiet Sunday morning, and the small-town church was filled with the familiar sounds of hymns and murmured prayers. Parishioners sat in the pews, heads bowed in reverence, as Father Miguel prepared to begin his sermon. The church was a beloved place of refuge for the townspeople, its stained glass windows casting colorful reflections across the stone floor, and a beautiful statue of the Virgin Mary stood at the front, gently illuminated by candlelight. Outside, the sound of light rain could be heard, creating a peaceful ambiance. But amid the calm, an unexpected visitor was making his way toward the church. A small beagle, with brown, black, and white fur and soulful eyes, wandered up the church steps, his nose twitching as he sniffed the wet air. His name was Benny, a stray known around town for his gentle nature and curious personality. Benny had no owner, yet he was well loved by locals who often fed him and gave him a gentle pat as he made his rounds through the neighborhood. Today, however, Benny seemed to be on a mission. With a determined look, he trotted up the church steps, his paws wet from the rain. He approached the grand wooden doors, which had been left slightly ajar, and without hesitation he slipped inside. His entrance went unnoticed at first as the congregation remained focused on Father Miguel's words. Benny moved quietly up the aisle, his head held low, ears perked as he took in the unfamiliar scents. It wasn't long before a few people noticed the small dog wandering between the pews, and soft murmurs spread as parishioners exchanged curious glances. Benny seemed unfazed, his attention fixed on the statue of Mary at the front of the church. His gait grew quicker, more purposeful, as if drawn by an unseen force. As he reached the front, Benny stopped directly in front of the statue, looking up with an intensity that surprised everyone. Then, to the astonishment of the congregation, Benny began barking. His voice was not frantic or aggressive, but carried a steady, almost rhythmic quality, as if he were trying to communicate something. Each bark echoed through the church, bouncing off the walls and reaching every corner of the sanctuary. Father Miguel paused, his sermon interrupted by the unusual scene. The beagle's bark seemed to fill the church with an energy that was both surprising and unsettling. Parishioners watched in silence, some amused, others intrigued, wondering what had compelled the dog to act in such a way. Benny continued to bark, his gaze unwavering as he looked up at the statue with a focus that was almost reverent. As the minutes passed, some of the parishioners began to grow uneasy, shifting in their seats and exchanging glances of concern. Others whispered quietly, speculating about the dog's behavior. "Perhaps he's hungry," one person murmured, while another suggested, "Maybe he's looking for shelter." But Benny's behavior didn't align with the usual needs of a stray dog. His barks were steady, intentional, as if he were attempting to draw attention not to himself, but to something else. Just as Father Miguel considered stepping forward to gently guide the dog out, Benny suddenly stopped barking. The silence that followed was profound, filling the church with an almost tangible stillness. Benny sat down, his eyes still locked on the statue, his expression calm yet somehow filled with a quiet intensity. He remained motionless, his gaze never wavering, as though he were waiting for something. A strange feeling settled over the church, a sense of anticipation that held everyone's attention. Then, something remarkable happened. A soft, warm light began to glow around the statue of Mary, growing brighter until it illuminated the entire front of the church. Gasps filled the air as the congregation watched in awe, their eyes wide with wonder. The light was gentle yet powerful, casting a golden glow that seemed to wrap around Mary's figure, making her appear almost lifelike. Father Miguel's heart raced as he struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. He had served in the church for decades, guiding his congregation with faith and wisdom, but he had never witnessed anything like this. The light radiated from the statue as if responding to Benny's presence, filling the sanctuary with a warmth that transcended the physical. It felt as though a divine presence had entered the room, touching each person with a profound sense of peace. Benny remained seated, his head tilted slightly as he continued to watch the statue, seemingly unfazed by the miraculous glow. His quiet demeanor contrasted with the awe and disbelief of the congregation, many of whom were now kneeling in prayer, tears streaming down their faces. Some clutched rosaries, whispering words of thanks, while others simply gazed at the statue in silent reverence, their hearts filled with a newfound sense of faith. The light slowly began to fade, returning the church to its usual dimness. Yet the atmosphere remained charged with emotion, as if a powerful message had been delivered in those few minutes. Father Miguel finally found his voice, his tone trembling with awe as he addressed the congregation. This was a blessing, a reminder of the divine presence among us, he said, his eyes glistening. Perhaps our visitor, this little dog, was chosen to bring us this message. At his words, the congregation looked at Benny with a mixture of gratitude and reverence. Some even approached him, reaching out to touch his head or offer gentle pats, as if he were a messenger of something greater. Benny accepted the attention with his usual calm, his eyes soft and kind, as though he understood the significance of what had just occurred. Father Miguel knelt beside Benny, placing a gentle hand on the beagle's head. "Thank you, little one," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. "You reminded us of something important today." Benny gave a soft bark, his tail wagging slightly, before turning and trotting back down the aisle. He glanced back once more at the statue, as if to say a quiet farewell, then slipped out through the open doors, disappearing into the rainy morning. As the congregation left the church that day, their hearts were lighter, their faith renewed. Many would speak of the beagle's visit for years to come, sharing the story of the stray dog who had interrupted Mass and brought a miraculous light to the statue of Mary. Benny's unexpected visit became a legend, a tale of faith and mystery that reminded everyone in the small town of the power of simple acts and the ways in which the divine might choose to make itself known. In the days following Benny's appearance at the church, the story of the miraculous event spread quickly throughout the town. Parishioners who had witnessed the light surrounding the statue shared their experience with neighbors, friends, and family members, describing the beagle's strange yet purposeful actions and the warmth that had filled the sanctuary. As the story circulated, it took on a life of its own, inspiring wonder and faith in those who heard it. People who had not been there that morning began visiting the church, hoping to see for themselves the statue of Mary that had glowed so beautifully. Some came seeking answers, others seeking solace, but all were touched by the sense of peace that seemed to linger in the air. The small church, once quiet and familiar, had become a place of pilgrimage, with townspeople and visitors alike gathering to reflect, pray, and leave offerings. Father Miguel, though overwhelmed by the attention, welcomed the visitors with open arms. He had spent his life guiding his congregation with humility and faith, but he too found himself deeply moved by the events. He often thought of Benny, wondering where the little beagle had gone after his unexpected visit. There was a part of him that hoped Benny might return, bringing with him the same sense of calm and mystery that had filled the church that morning. As more people came to the church, Father Miguel noticed a change in the atmosphere. Visitors would enter with a quiet reverence, their faces softened by hope. Some knelt before the statue of Mary, whispering prayers or lighting candles, while others simply sat in the pews, gazing at the place where the light had appeared. The experience had rekindled a sense of unity within the community, bringing people together in a shared feeling of wonder and gratitude. One afternoon, a young mother came to the church with her child, a little boy who had been unwell for several months. She had heard the story of the miracle and had come seeking comfort, her heart weighed down by worry. As she knelt before the statue, her son clutched her hand, his wide eyes taking in the colors of the stained glass and the soft glow of the candles. Father Miguel approached quietly, offering a gentle smile. "May I say a prayer with you?" he asked, his voice soft. The woman nodded, grateful for his kindness, and together they bowed their heads, their words mingling in a quiet plea for healing and peace. As they prayed, a familiar sound echoed from the back of the church, a soft, gentle bark that caused heads to turn in surprise. Benny had returned. The beagle trotted down the aisle, his ears perked up and his expression calm. He approached the woman and her son, sitting down beside them as though he had sensed their need. The mother looked down, her eyes filling with tears as she reached out to stroke Benny's head. Her son giggled, his small fingers gently patting the dog's fur, and for the first time in weeks, she saw a glimmer of joy return to her child's face. Benny's presence seemed to ease the tension in the woman's shoulders. She whispered words of gratitude, feeling a renewed sense of hope as the little beagle sat beside her. Father Miguel watched with a deep sense of awe, sensing that Benny's return was no mere coincidence. The beagle's calm, watchful presence had once again brought comfort to those in need, just as he had done on that unforgettable morning. As Benny remained by the mother and child's side, other visitors quietly approached, some kneeling to touch his fur, others offering him gentle pats and murmuring words of affection. Benny accepted the attention with his usual grace, his soulful eyes reflecting the warmth that he seemed to carry within him. It was as if he had become a living symbol of the peace and love that had filled the church during the miracle. Over the following weeks, Benny continued to visit the church regularly. Each time, he seemed to know exactly where he was needed, often sitting beside those who were deep in prayer or struggling with a personal burden. His presence became a source of comfort, a quiet reminder that even in the darkest times, there was light and kindness to be found. People began to refer to Benny as the guardian of the church, a title that reflected the sense of reverence he had inspired. The beagle, once a stray wandering the streets, had become a beloved figure in the community, his visits to the church bringing hope and unity to those who needed it most. Children would often bring small treats for him, leaving them by the church door as offerings of gratitude for the dog who had shown them the power of faith and compassion. Father Miguel, too, felt a deep connection to Benny. He saw the dog as a messenger, a reminder of the divine presence that watched over them. Each time Benny appeared, Father Miguel felt his own faith renewed, strengthened by the quiet companionship of the beagle who seemed to understand more than he let on. One evening, as Father Miguel prepared to lock up the church, he found Benny sitting by the statue of Mary, his gaze fixed on her face with an expression that was almost serene. Father Miguel knelt beside him, resting a hand on Benny's back as he whispered, "Thank you for all you've done, little one. You've brought so much peace to this place." Benny looked up at him, his eyes filled with warmth and understanding. For a moment, it felt as though they shared a silent conversation, an unspoken bond that needed no words. Father Miguel felt a profound sense of gratitude for Benny's presence, a feeling that lingered as they sat together in the quiet, their hearts filled with a shared sense of purpose. The story of Benny and the miracle at the church continued to inspire the town, a tale of faith, love, and the mysterious ways in which the divine could manifest. For those who visited the church, the beagle's gentle spirit became a symbol of hope, a reminder that sometimes The simplest gestures could bring about the most profound change. As the seasons changed, Benny continued to visit the church, each appearance drawing a small crowd of townspeople and visitors who were eager to see the guardian of the church. His presence had become a source of hope and inspiration, and his quiet, calming influence touched everyone he encountered. Those who saw him felt as though they were witnessing a miracle, a gentle reminder of the mysteries that connected them all. Father Miguel had grown especially fond of Benny. He often sat with the beagle in the quiet hours of the evening, reflecting on the impact that this small dog had had on their community. For Father Miguel, Benny was a reminder of the divine presence in everyday life, a living testament to the power of faith and kindness. He began to feel that Benny had a purpose beyond what any of them could fully understand. One Sunday, as Father Miguel was delivering his sermon, he noticed Benny quietly entering the church. Benny trotted up the aisle, his head held high, as if he had a message to deliver. Father Miguel paused, acknowledging the beagle's presence with a warm smile, as the congregation watched in silent anticipation. Benny walked toward the statue of Mary, his gaze steady, and sat down in front of her, his eyes filled with a gentle intensity. Then, in a gesture that surprised everyone, Benny lay down at the foot of the statue, resting his head on his paws. He remained still, as if in quiet contemplation, his body relaxed and calm. The congregation watched in silence, feeling a sense of peace settle over the church. Father Miguel continued his sermon, inspired by the sight of Benny lying at Mary's feet, a living symbol of humility and devotion. After the service, Father Miguel approached Benny, kneeling beside him and placing a gentle hand on his back. "Thank you for your faith, little one," he whispered. "You've reminded us all of what it means to believe." Benny looked up at him, his eyes warm and understanding, as if he could sense the gratitude in Father Miguel's heart. In the following days, Benny's visits became less frequent. He still appeared at the church, but his once regular visits grew sporadic, and each time he came, he would spend a few quiet moments in front of the statue before slipping away. The townspeople noticed his absence, feeling a sense of longing for the gentle beagle who had brought them so much comfort and peace. Then, one cool autumn morning, Father Miguel received a call from a nearby hospital. A nurse had found Benny lying outside the building, his body weak and frail. Recognizing the dog from his visits to the church, she had brought him inside, wanting to ensure he was cared for. Father Miguel's heart ached as he hurried to the hospital, hoping to be by Benny's side. When he arrived, he found Benny resting on a blanket, his breathing slow but steady. The little beagle looked up, his eyes filled with the same gentle warmth that Father Miguel had come to love. Father Miguel knelt beside him, stroking his fur and whispering words of gratitude. "You've done so much for us, Benny," he said softly. "You've been a blessing to this town, a true guardian." As Father Miguel sat with him, he noticed a soft light shining through the hospital window, illuminating Benny's face. In that moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace, as if Benny's presence had brought with it a final message of love and reassurance. The beagle had come into their lives with a purpose, and Father Miguel sensed that he had fulfilled it in a way that went beyond words. Benny's breathing slowed, and as Father Miguel held him close, the little dog drifted into a peaceful sleep, his journey complete. Father Miguel felt tears welling in his eyes, but they were tears of gratitude, for he knew that Benny's spirit would remain with them always. The beagle, who had come into their lives so unexpectedly, had left a legacy of kindness, faith, and love that would endure in the hearts of everyone he had touched. The townspeople mourned Benny's passing, but they also celebrated his life. Father Miguel held a special service in his honor, inviting the community to gather and share memories of the beagle who had shown them the power of faith and compassion. Stories were told of Benny's gentle presence, his unwavering loyalty, and the miraculous light that had appeared at Mary's statue. Children brought flowers to the church, placing them at the statue's base as a tribute to their beloved guardian of the church. In time, a small plaque was placed at the foot of the statue, engraved with the words, "In memory of Benny, the guardian of the church, a faithful friend and a reminder of the divine love that surrounds us all." The plaque served as a permanent reminder of the beagle's impact, a testament to the simple yet profound ways in which his life had touched theirs. For years to come, visitors to the church would hear the story of Benny, the stray who had interrupted Mass and brought with him a miraculous light. His tale became a cherished part of the town's history, a story passed down through generations as a reminder of the ways in which faith could manifest in the most unexpected forms. Father Miguel often found himself looking at the plaque, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and peace. Benny's legacy had left a lasting mark on his heart, strengthening his faith and inspiring him to serve with even greater love and compassion. Though the little beagle was gone, his spirit remained, a quiet guardian watching over the church and the town he had come to call home. In the years that followed, Benny's story continued to echo within the walls of the small town church. Parishioners, townsfolk, and even visitors from far-off places would come to hear about the miraculous beagle who had appeared at Mass and left behind a legacy of love and faith. His plaque beneath the statue of Mary became a place of reflection, where people would pause to offer a silent prayer or seek comfort in times of need. Benny's memory became intertwined with the fabric of the church, a symbol of hope that brought peace to those who visited. Father Miguel often found himself telling Benny's story, particularly to children who had never met the beagle, but who listened with wide eyes and open hearts. He described the way Benny had trotted down the aisle with such determination, his bark calling out like a message from beyond. For Father Miguel, sharing Benny's story became a reminder of the many ways in which the divine could touch their lives, even through the smallest and most humble of creatures. One summer, the church held a special gathering in honor of Benny's legacy. People from the town and surrounding areas attended, some bringing their own dogs in remembrance of the beagle who had shown them so much love. Families sat together on the lawn, sharing stories of how Benny's tale had touched their hearts. Many of them spoke of how, even in his absence, Benny's story reminded them to look for moments of kindness and to believe in the small miracles that brightened their lives. During the service, Father Miguel led a prayer of thanks for Benny's life, his words filled with gratitude for the gift that the beagle had given them. "Benny taught us to love deeply, to believe in the impossible, and to trust in the gentle ways that grace can enter our lives," he said, his voice carrying through the crowd. "May we carry his legacy forward, always remembering the light he brought to this church and to our hearts." After the service, children gathered around the statue of Mary, placing small tokens, flowers, notes, even a few dog treats, as symbols of their affection for Benny. The plaque below the statue sparkled in the afternoon sunlight, a quiet reminder of the beagle's gentle spirit. Parents watched with fond smiles as their children left these simple offerings, knowing that Benny's memory would live on in their hearts. Over time, Benny's tale became a cherished story passed down through generations. Each year, on the anniversary of his first visit to the church, the congregation would gather to honor him, lighting candles and offering prayers for the beloved guardian of the church. Father Miguel would often share new insights into Benny's story, reflecting on how the beagle's presence had changed not only his own life, but the lives of so many others. Benny had shown them that even the smallest acts of love could create ripples that reached far beyond their own understanding. As Father Miguel grew older, he found peace in knowing that Benny's legacy would continue long after he was gone. He often sat by the statue in the evenings, quietly reminiscing about the beagle who had brought him so much joy and comfort. He felt Benny's presence in those quiet moments, a reassuring warmth that reminded him of the friendship they had shared. One winter evening, as Father Miguel gazed at the statue, he felt a familiar sensation, a gentle warmth that seemed to fill the air around him. He closed his eyes, smiling as he imagined Benny sitting beside him once more, the little beagle's spirit as strong and faithful as ever. In that moment, Father Miguel knew that Benny would always be with them, a silent guardian watching over the church and its people. The story of Benny's miraculous visit continued to inspire all who heard it, a reminder that love, faith, and kindness could manifest in the most unexpected ways. For those who had known him, Benny was more than just a dog. He was a beacon of hope, a symbol of the ways in which even the smallest acts of compassion could light the way through life's darkest moments. As the years went on, new families came to the town, bringing with them their own stories, dreams, and hopes. Yet Benny's tale remained a constant, a legend that united old and new residents alike. Parents would tell their children about the little beagle who had brought a miracle to their church, encouraging them to believe in the power of kindness and the beauty of faith. And so, Benny's legacy endured, his spirit woven into the fabric of the community. The small, humble beagle, who had once wandered the streets, had left an indelible mark on the hearts of all who had known him. His story served as a reminder that love and grace could be found in the most unexpected places, a lesson that resonated through the generations. For Father Miguel, Benny's memory remained a guiding light, a source of strength and inspiration that reminded him to serve with love and humility. Each day, as he led his congregation in prayer, he carried Benny's story in his heart, knowing that the little beagle's legacy would live on, bringing hope and comfort to all who walked through the doors of the church. As the story of Benny continued to spread, people from distant towns came to visit the small church, drawn by the tale of the beagle who had brought light to a statue and warmth to a community. They came to see the plaque beneath Mary's statue, leaving small offerings and saying quiet prayers, moved by the story of the little dog who had shown such inexplicable devotion. Many visitors felt a sense of peace upon entering the church, as though Benny's spirit still lingered, offering a silent blessing to all who crossed its threshold. Children growing up in the town knew Benny's story by heart. For them, he was more than a legend. He was a symbol of kindness, a hero who had touched the lives of their parents, grandparents, and neighbors. Each year, on the anniversary of his first miraculous appearance, the community would gather to light candles in his memory, filling the church with a soft, glowing warmth that seemed to reach every corner. In those moments, it felt as though Benny were there with them, his spirit a comforting presence. One young girl, inspired by Benny's story, began leaving treats for stray dogs around town, hoping to bring them comfort and love, just as Benny had done for so many. Her simple act of kindness sparked a movement within the community, with townsfolk joining together to care for animals in need, ensuring that every stray found a place of warmth and safety. Benny's legacy had grown beyond the church, inspiring a wave of compassion that spread through every corner of the town. Father Miguel continued to share Benny's story, weaving it into his sermons as a reminder of faith, hope, and love. He encouraged his congregation to remember Benny's message, to live with open hearts and to offer kindness wherever they could. The beagle, who had once interrupted Mass with his barks, had left them with a message that would resonate through generations, a message that reminded them of the beauty found in simple acts of love. As Father Miguel grew older, He found comfort in knowing that Benny's legacy would endure, carried on by those who had witnessed his gentle spirit and by those who had only heard his story. Even as new families arrived in the town, Benny's memory remained alive, a treasured part of the community's history. In his final days, Father Miguel would often sit by the statue of Mary, gazing at Benny's plaque and recalling the miraculous events that had brought them together. He would smile softly, knowing that the Beagle's love had touched more lives than they could ever count, leaving a legacy that would inspire for generations to come. Benny's story became a part of the town's soul, a tale of love, faith, and the unexpected ways in which miracles could touch their lives. And though Benny was no longer there in body, his spirit lived on, a quiet guardian watching over the church and the community he had come to call home. If Benny's story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share this video to keep his legacy of kindness alive.